Hi, it's Cindy Morris with the Peoria Public Schools Foundation. Happy everyone. We are so glad to be back. We've had a few-week break on our little chats that we started, and the whole goal of Bud's Chats is positive conversations, especially those that are linked to our Peoria Public School District. So we are Peoria Public Schools Foundation, and we exist and have for many years, and our mission and work is to support our school district. And we do that mostly through kind of traditional ways of classroom grants and scholarships for seniors. We've, in the last 10 years or so, gotten into some programming with our Horizons programming, a career and college readiness programming, and we're overseeing the Adopt a School program. We do a lot of basic need support, providing uniforms and clothing support to our schools and students. We do emergency funding. And through our Adopt a School program, we do little free pantries. We do Making the Grade, which is a mentoring program, and just always out in the community trying to build bridges for businesses and organizations and people to connect them to our school district. So very great organization with that exclusive mission. And this is our 5th Buzz Chats tonight. And I feel so honored and thrilled to have a teacher with us tonight. At the Peoria Public Schools Foundation, we love our school district, our schools and staff, and very much our teachers. And we know that you are on the front lines. You help shape, inform, and educate our students, and that's a very important and impactful job. So tonight, again, I'm thrilled to have a teacher. We have Mr. Joe Baumgardner, and he teaches at Richwoods High School. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. And there is a reason we asked him, because we have many, many teachers in our school district and so many wonderful ones, but he has been a successful classroom grant writer. And last year, we offered out 4 different grants to our school district. And a few of those were in collaboration with the Community Foundation of Central Illinois. And Joe got all 4. He applied for 4 grants and got all 4. So the topic of conversation will go a little around that, because we are getting into our classroom grant time frame. The applications will start getting out there on August 1. So welcome, Joe. So glad to have you. And if you could tell the listeners, viewers, a little bit about yourself and your background in education.
All right, let's see. I'll just do like the mini version of the life story. Yeah, I grew up around here, lived out in the country, out near Farmington, went to school at Farmington, went to Bradley, studied molecular biology there for a while, and didn't do too well and didn't like it, and kind of bounced around, and eventually met a couple really influential teachers over in the education department and went into teaching science. And so I started my career over at Peoria High and spent 2.5 years there. Then when Woodruff closed, I got bumped over to Manual, and I was at Manual for a couple of years. And then now I've been at Richwoods for 8 or 9 years. It's gone fast. And so, yeah, right now I teach chemistry, and well, I teach a whole bunch of chemistry over at Richwoods and live here in the school district. As I was telling Miss Morris before, we just moved into the school district. I have a 7 now, a 7 and a 9-year-old. So a soon to be 2nd and 4th grader. And we went to a different school district, but I've seen a lot of great kids come here through District 150. And so I wanted my kids to be some of them too. So one day maybe I'll get to be their teacher.
Oh, I love that. And I have to tell you, when we were talking about, having a teacher on the show, and your name came up, and I had Hope Shipman was one of our guests. And when I told her, she got excited. It's neat to see students and even your former students. They get so excited when I say your name or your name's mentioned. Like Hope was just like glowing and loved, and she even worked with one of your class or one of your grants, like the project that
Yeah, she's good.
She loved it so much. And then I don't know if you know, Mrs. O'Shaughnessy, Trish O'Shaughnessy works with the foundation, and her son Alex just graduated, and he loved you. So
I know Alex. Hi, Alex, if you're watching.
And Alex has been he's been around the foundation for so many years. So attending Bradley probably, as you might know.
Yeah.
But it's really neat when our students love their teachers, and I definitely get that vibe from you. Your students really, really love you.
Oh, I've got great students. It makes the job a lot of fun. I enjoy going to work every day. It's just you never know what you're going to hear from them, and it's just never boring. And then you get to see them grow up, and yeah.
I'm not sure if this was one of the questions, but was there? I mean, you got into teaching. Was that something you knew at a young age that you wanted to be a teacher?
No.
Okay.
Let's see. Teaching was always one of those things I was told, like, you can't be a teacher. They don't make enough money. And so, yeah, that wasn't even a consideration. But when I'd gone to Bradley for a while, and I always knew I wanted to do something with science. And so I went to Bradley for a while, and I just didn't find anything that motivated me. So I was just taking a bunch of different classes, seeing what would spark my interest. And then finally, I met Dr. Casambira over there. He was one of the main ones my freshman year over there. And he just kind of convinced me that it's a job that I could be good at and that I would really enjoy going to work every day doing. And he was right. I'm still there. That got me hooked.
So he really, you would say he was one of your main influence of.
Yeah, he was a big one. Dr. Thompson over there was a big one. Yeah, they had some great teachers over there. And so, yeah, that's sometimes all it takes is just somebody to convince you, to just encourage you, tell you could be good at something. And so now I try to be that way to some of my students and point them in a direction in something I think they could be happy with.
Well, when you said you grew up in kind of a smaller town, were you like a K-8 model?
Let's see. So we had like a separate elementary school, like a small one out in Hannah City, and then we went to a middle school at Logan, and then eventually we ended up in Farmington. Now they're a big K through 12 model, but back then it was just back then it was a lot smaller, and it was a great school district. I liked it. The problem, I guess, for me, it was just, and the reason I brought my kids out here is just there's so many, having a bigger school, there are just so many different classes we offer here. There's such a big advantage, like having just, especially at Richwoods, such a diverse population of students. Like they just get to know everybody from every background in the world. And that's the kind of kids I want. Kids who have, met people who have kind of experienced the world and just come out of high school prepared for everything, I guess.
Prepared for the world.
Yeah.
Do you have a teacher or teachers in your younger years that, really stood out that you just loved, like that made you,
Let's see. I mean, maybe if I go back to like third grade, Miss Schmid taught me about dinosaurs, and that was my first science thing, and somehow that was cool. Not that I do much of that anymore. Yeah, Miss Bologna was pretty great too. So my third grade teachers got me going, and after that, I don't know.
Any family members that were teachers?
Let's see. No. Well, let's see. I've got my Aunt Candy, who's a geneticist who went through Bradley, and she works out at Utah State University. My dad was a physics major over at Bradley. Like we have a bunch of science people in the family, and just science seemed so much more fun than everything else.
Yeah.
Just understanding the world around you, and so chemistry is kind of what I fell into, but all the sciences are great. So.
My grandmother, she was a school teacher, and back when she was going to college, it was a 2-year degree, but she was a one room schoolhouse, so I remember these stories about, it was just one building with one room, and she was the teacher, and I used to love hearing about that. And then she was real creative and became a self-taught artist. As a matter of fact, that painting is one of hundreds of paintings I have of hers. And then my sister, she teaches third grade at Thomas Jefferson, but she's always been a real inspiration to me, working in the school district. And my former life was a banker, and I used to come in as a banker and talk to her students at King and Ting, but that's before I had my own kids. But I just remember even back then falling in love with teachers and watching her teach. And she was so passionate, and she treats her students like her own kids, which I'm sure you do too. But you do. It's like teachers and nurses, you have these such impactful jobs that affect, people in a major way. So
it is a really rewarding job. It is. I do get to hear back from some of my students after they've left school, and I see them go into some kind of science field, and yeah, it feels good.
Right. Well, we'll get to we have a little program here. So again, I said that we have been doing classroom grants for over 20 years, and you were very successful last fall and getting 4 different kinds of grants, which that's where I met you whenever we presented your grant awards. But how did you get started in applying for grants? Because I know last year wasn't your first year in applying for grants, right?
Right, that was my second year, yeah.
Okay. And where did you get your ideas? Because I know there were different categories, but how did you get started applying for grants?
Well, let's see. Finally, a few years ago, I started a science club out at Richwoods, and I kind of got going with that and had a big crew of students who was showing up, for our monthly meetings and doing stuff. But pretty quickly, I figured out that I couldn't just impress them once a month, especially in the world of YouTube and everything else, where they can see all the cool stuff already. There's not that much exciting I can do. So I was trying to come up with other things to do with my science club. And for my first grant, it was just something smaller where we did a field experience grant, and we went up to the Adler Planetarium and the Shed Aquarium and the Field Museum, that whole museum campus up there in Chicago. And that was just one of those things where I was thinking through what kind of science related stuff is important for kids to know but doesn't get covered by our current curriculum. And so that's where the planetarium came in, because we don't do any astronomy, but I've always been interested in it, and I know kids ask me questions about it. So it's, how can we do something like that that's going to expose them to something they wouldn't get in high school? So that's where that idea came from. And then after that, after about a year of science club, and I decided that, maybe instead of just having big group meetings, I wanted to find big projects or one thing we could do, and I could give kids some opportunity to gain some leadership experience and all of this stuff. And so came up with a couple little ideas for that. Just mostly spent a lot of time Googling, looking around online, seeing what other people were doing. And then I'd always wanted to do something on lead poisoning. Back at the beginning of my teaching career, I was teaching anatomy at Central, and I had my students read an article on lead poisoning. And as you started to look at the different effects of lead poisoning, things like, let's see, what are they all? Lowered IQ, attention deficit disorder, behavior problems like speech and hearing, slow development. And they're all things we see in the teaching profession all the time. I wanted to get into that a little more and do a study of that. But then I got transferred to a new school because a school closed, and then I had kids, and then I didn't have that, knocked out 5 or 6 years of free time. And so, yeah, the lead poisoning thing had just been bouncing around in my head a lot. And then we had the Flint, Michigan thing, which, makes you think more about lead poisoning. And other than that, the other couple ideas, I just had those 2 ideas, but then there were 4 different grants out there I could do. And I thought, I have 50 or 60 kids in science club. We can do more than just one thing. And so just bounce some ideas around, talking to my wife, and it is good to marry somebody smarter than you because they give you even better ideas. And so, yeah, that's where we got to, just talking to people, mostly my wife, and doing a lot of internet searching.
Yeah, that's great. What impact have the grant programs had on your classroom? And it sounds like you've done it a lot with your science. Your grants really impacted your science club that you started.
Right. I've used a lot of the grants with my science clubs, or we've used some of them in class, and then I've gotten some of the kids from class to just let's stay after school and go a little further with this and take this somewhere else.
Right.
And so I think, like for the lead poisoning thing, we had talked about that as one of the topics in my chemistry class, but it kind of showed our kids that you could get allowed or you could get involved in the community a little bit more. Like we see all these problems out here, and we want to be able to do something about them. And you know, you can actually come up with an action plan and do that. And the kids I have in my classes are very smart. They're good speakers. They have great ideas. They just need somebody to push them or give them that kind of opportunity. And so I've been trying to do that with all of my stuff and just try it and see what works. And if it works, then just put your resources and your time into it.
So have you been thinking of some kind of unique, and we are, I'm a little sad to say, but we are taking a pause on field experience grants as the CDC is recommending not field trips. But they'll be back, just not this upcoming year. But are you starting to think about your what kind of grants you might be applying for if you're going to apply in August?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know one of the questions you gave me, and we might as well jump to it, was talking about like how COVID is going to affect our classrooms this fall and how the grant writing might go into that. And so a lot of what I've been thinking about for my classes is just, okay, if I'm only going to see them every other day, and if the numbers continue the way we are and we're going to some all virtual thing in the future, which seems like a decent possibility, how could I write a grant? What could I get to kind of fill the gaps in when they can't see me? And so trying to figure out how I can get them more involved with chemistry at home, like what kind of, kitchen chemistry type setups and bags and things that they can take them to be able to do the chemistry experiments we would be doing in class, just in a less dangerous setting.
Right. That's a great idea. And, the thing about your lead program is, it was so unique and specific. Obviously we'd never seen any grant like that. And those are, for teachers that are out there and teachers and staff thinking about grants, that's how you really do stick out, as if it's not something that's the norm for writing grants. In 10 years ago, it was this big push. We saw lots of, teachers applying for iPads and technology and that. And then, that's shifted back because it's been more readily available. But, that's what I would say to encourage, is to come up with something really unique and different that not just the norm, because those things, the grant committee really, they want innovation in the classroom. And that's, that lead program definitely was.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is just, we have kids who are very capable and who are involved in their community. And so if you can see some kind of deficit or some kind of issue in the community that you can connect to your class, like this one, we can go through some of the data, because the state of Illinois releases about the percentages of kids who do have high enough blood levels of lead that they have, the lowered IQ, the speech, the hearing, the developmental problems, all that. Like finding some kind of community thing so that the kids can feel like they are giving back and they're actually doing something good.
I know that you as teachers know about these grants and kind of how nonprofits work, and, what we inspire to do with giving these grants. But what do you think the kids think about these programs, and like how that's funded, like that lead program through us? Like, what do they think about it? Do you talk to them about it?
Oh yeah, that's at the very forefront, because I want them to understand, like when they get into the real world, they're going to have budgets too. And so I can tell them, we can sit down with this lead thing and say, hey, we want to get the community to know about what they can do to reduce lead in their homes, to reduce their kids' exposure. We want to get kids tested. We have $1,500 a year. What is the best way we can spend this? Because they have to see the budget, because they're going to, as soon as they get out of high school and get out of college, nobody has unlimited funding. And so, and it has been good for them, because they can see, this expenditure, just weighing two different expenditures, seeing like what could do the most good. So I like having those conversations with them and seeing them think through it.
Yeah. And I try whenever we run our Horizons program in the middle schools. I talk to every year. I really talk to them about what charities and nonprofits are too, because that we do have a lot, and there's so many great organizations, but it's good for them to learn about that. I don't remember really knowing about that when I was in grade school, like what a charity and nonprofit is. I remember thinking I think Brace for the Cure is probably one I remember, but so you talked about the grant for the lead program, and then you had what I'm trying, because you've had so many and we have so many grants. Talk about the other three that you got, because one was specific STEM programming, right?
Right.
Okay.
So let's see. So we had the STEM one. We had another field experience grant, and so that was going up to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. And going to the Art Institute up there. Again, one of those, like, I can take them to the Museum of Science and Industry and they can see a bunch of examples of science that I'm never going to be able to show them in the classroom. So I can connect them to new topics that way. So museums are great for that. That's why teachers have been taking their kids to museums forever.
Right.
The other big one is I wanted to give some kids some opportunities to, some more leadership opportunities and to get in front of kids too, to be mini teachers. So we had one we call Science Squires, where we went to some of the feeder schools for Richwoods Nights, and so they're little kids who are going to Richwoods, who will go to Richwoods, so they're squires. And so we were partnering with some third grade classrooms over at Keller and over at Northmore, and I was sending groups of 4 students over there, and my students were coming up with like what kind of activities around a topic, like we did electricity and magnetism, and just make a bunch of little demonstrations and a little like inquiry-based activities and mini writing assignments, and they could go over there and my students, I think I had 4 groups of 4 students each, if that's right. And yeah, they were all different classrooms, and they would just walk in, and for about half an hour or 40 minutes, they would just kind of take over, and they would break the kids up into small groups, and they would have them connecting circuits together to see how electricity works, or making electromagnets, or just doing a bunch of little things with static electricity, or making circuits with pencil, graphite, and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, and then my students would come back and we could talk about it and see how we could do the second round based on like light related activities better. And so yeah, I mean, all of my students loved it. They get to teach little kids. The little kids clearly loved it. I talked to the teachers afterward who were the third grade teachers, and it's a cool experience.
Was Hope in that one too?
That was the one. Hope, that was a big one that Hope was in. She was also doing the lead one, but she was she was one of my good ones in that one too. So just teaching little kids is just so rewarding, because they're clearly so excited and they haven't done anything like that before. And so maybe we can get them motivated to take more science classes in the future, or just think about the world around them a little more analytically.
Now, that one, did you Google and find that idea somewhere else, or do you come up with that one on your own?
That one I came up with on my own. Like, as I was looking around, like, we have Bradley does their chemistry demonstration team, and they go to a bunch of different places around here. Dr. Campbell does that. And I've always thought that was a pretty neat thing to do. And so I liked that idea, but it had already been taken. But then I thought, why not do this with little kids? Like, we can do we can do a similar thing. Ours isn't just chemistry, it's just any of the sciences, but we can go to the lower grades. And I have little kids. I have a 2nd and a 4th grader, and I see how excited they are with all of my science stuff. And they both want to be chemistry teachers when they grow up. And so it's just, oh yeah, well, it won't last, but for now, their dad's cool. Because who else gets to light their desk on fire and blow things up? I mean, let's be honest.
When you said Dr. Campbell, were you talking about Dr. Alan Campbell?
Dean Campbell.
Oh, Dean Campbell. Okay. Well, that one, I mean, wow, you really are amazing. Seriously, that is like such a cool concept. Those high schoolers are working with the little ones, and as a young, with 3rd graders, how exciting to have high schoolers come and talking and
yeah. they had won already just by being high school kids. So
Right.
and
Yeah.
so initially, kind of in my mind, I was going to go in there and do some of it. My students were going to facilitate it, but then it became pretty obvious. Like I have good enough students. Like I don't even have to be there. They're just good. They can come in and prepare with me, and then they can just take the lead. And they did.
Right. Yeah. Um, let's see. So how do you keep track of grant success, and how do you measure that for the future grant applications, like especially for this year, the 4 different grants that you got?
For the most part, I would say lots and lots of surveys. So if it's a field experience grant, like on the way home from the trips up to Chicago, I'll give them a little piece of paper and it'll have a QR code and they'll scan it. And my students will do like a 5-question survey monkey, like the thing, how do they rate the trip? What do they like? How could I improve it in the future? And I've done that for all the field trips I do. And it just helps me learn what the heck they like and make it better each year. For the rest of them, like for the science choirs things, it was just contacting those teachers over there, talking to my students, telling me what worked, what caused the little kids' fingers to burn and cry. Well, they didn't cry, but like just finding all the different little ways that we could fix it. So just talking to everybody involved and getting a lot of ideas.
Yeah. I have to tell you, we got a few little comments I wanted to read to you. I don't know if this was a teacher friend or a former student. It says Peter Offit. Great to see you, Mr. Baumgardner.
Is that Mr. Offit? Yeah. He subs out at Richwoods all the time. Yeah, great guy.
And then Trish O'Shaughnessy says Alex says hello. So they must be watching.
Hi, guys.
Okay. We talked just a few minutes before we got on live, but so you were telling me how you've been home with your kids, and you've had maybe a few other kids, neighbor kids with you. So you've been keeping quite busy with 2 or 4 children in your home during the summer.
Yeah.
Are you?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure all the parents out there are feeling the same thing I do. Like you're just trying to make each day a little bit different so it doesn't get too repetitive. So lots of hiking, lots of talking about science, lots of creek walking out at Jubilee Park, lots of bike rides, everything we can possibly do because it doesn't feel like it's going to end anytime soon. So
I know. Are you doing any little science projects at home with the kids, or?
We did a whole bunch at the very beginning of the summer, and we had done a lot this spring because as I was getting ready for all of these, like teaching the 3rd graders science, like my kids were the main victims. Like I was trying them out first and making sure it would work there. And so they get a lot of science. And at the beginning of this whole thing, when I could, I would take them into Richwoods and we would have some kind of chemistry days. But now that we're trying to like keep the whole environment closed, they're kind of bummed out that we can't go to the chemistry lab. So we have to start doing some forestry stuff down at Glen Oak, and just finding little animals in the creek and watching YouTube videos about them, learn about them, and a lot of Khan Academy math.
Oh yeah, Khan Academy, that's good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Have you been to Forest Park? I love.
Only 2 or 3 times a month. Yeah. Since we moved out here into the district, we live over about 5 or 6 minutes from Richwood. So I'm 5 minutes from Detweiler and 5 minutes from Forest Park, and we're there a lot. They're great places. Like if you didn't know that Peoria has tons of parks and tons of places to hike, even within an hour drive, like there's so much here.
Oh, there is. Yeah. And I've known about it forever, but I've fallen in love with the Rock Island Trail. I mean, that's just what an asset for our community. I mean, that's incredible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, have you been on the Rock Island Trail for biking and stuff like that?
Oh, we've done that. Let's see. I've taken groups of students, not since the whole quarantine thing, but like we've got like Matheson Park up by Starved Rock Park, and it is cool to get kids out there because some of them just never realize what we've got out here. So some of my summer has been spent reading a lot about geology, and so that when I take these kids out there, I can teach them more and more, and practicing on my own kids.
Have you taken your kids or been out to Emaquan?
That is on the list, but no, I have not done. I've been told it's right there. It's in the top 3 that I haven't done yet.
Man, that is like, that is incredible. And Jason Beverland from the Nature Conservancy runs that. wow, you're going to be blown away, and you'll want to go back again and again. It's just incredible. So, yeah.
All right, I will definitely give it a try.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you have tips for other teachers who are interested in applying for grants, deciding what to apply for, tips for writing a grant, how to pull a budget for the program, and other tips? So really any help. I think you were there when we gave out the grants. I think we had probably half, it was their first time applying for grants. And that's the thing. I mean, I find, and we write grants as nonprofits, and I've been writing a lot of, Trish and our team, we've been writing a lot of grants when COVID hit. But I always find that grants are 50-50. 50% of the time, you have really good luck, and the other 50% no, but you just keep trying and don't get discouraged, and, keep at it. But what tips do you have for maybe, especially like a newer teacher that's never applied for a grant? What suggestions do you have?
Well, I would say first off, start thinking about it now than summer, because as soon as school starts, it's tough. This job is way more than a 50-hour a week job, and so start kind of thinking through about at least what I do for science is I think through into what in science is getting covered right now. Like, what if they go through the entire science pathway clear to high school, through high school, what do they not know? And so some of those ideas I got just walking around like museums, like the Museum of Science and Industry, and you see things, or the robotics type stuff, or other stuff that we don't hit in our curriculum. Like, what is in your curriculum that they don't do now that you could do? I would certainly suggest, you've got posted all the stuff about past foundation grants, like going through and reading through the list, because, I read through that list of what people are getting grants for, and I never thought of 99% of those things, and there are a ton of cool ideas. So getting online, there's no harm in stealing ideas. Let's see. For me at Richwoods, we've got 8 people in our science department. And so talking through some of the ideas with my science department has always been pretty good. Just bringing up a topic, like what got you, asking people what got them excited to be science teachers, like what do they like? Getting some ideas that way. If you aren't a great grant writer, partner with somebody else. In my case, I have a wife who I can write stuff and then she can make it sound good. And so find somebody who's a better writer than you. And like you said, don't give up. All but one of these grants, let's see. Yeah, at least 2 of the grants that I applied for and got last year, I had applied for the year before through PNC and just got completely rejected. And so it was just, instead of just giving up when you get rejected for a grant, kind of sit down, maybe you have somebody else read through it, or maybe just a year later you'll have some more ideas and you can just add to it, because just because you got rejected once does not mean it was a bad idea. It was just, it didn't fit in that year with whoever read that grant.
Exactly. So, or the money, that's the thing. I mean, I'd like to give every teacher that applies for a grant, but we have a certain pot of money. We have to give out what we can. So, and then probably the other thing is, the budget part. I think I've found with teachers and the 10 years I've been working with the grant program, there's been a little struggle there with, putting the budget together. Do you have any tips there?
For me, it was just, that's a hard one, because it's tough to know exactly what you want to do before you get started. So for me, I just came up with an action plan, and it's just like, okay, these are all the things I want to do for each of my grants. What would it cost? And I mean, you've gotten some of the emails. So like for my lead one, I totally envisioned a different project, and then I got started with it. And what I thought I was going to spend money on, I didn't need to anymore. I thought the main lead problem in Peoria was drinking water, and then it becomes lead paint. And so all those drinking water tests I planned for, not so much. But you guys were very good about hey, just explaining this is what I thought it was going to be. But now that we've talked to, in this case, talked to Ryan Crosland, the lead safe coordinator down at the health department, and we find out these are really the needs that they have. And this is really where they envision a high school group fitting in. And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning. So do your best.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. And, with you sent the email with the change, and we're super accommodating, and we with the whole program, we want to be encouraging to teachers. So we do have some flexibility in it. And, we just got a big grant. And one of the things that we applied for in the grant, we made these safety sacks for the kids and families that'll be at the Dream Center on Saturday. Mm-hmm. But we couldn't get one of the items in there. So we had to pivot what we put in the safety sack. And, we will report out. And I actually talked to the community foundation today and said, this is what we did. And they're fine with it. They understand. Even pricing, when you're pricing out stuff, that's the other part of the grant. Sometimes whenever you price out, when you're putting the proposal together, and then when it comes to time to actually order it, there's a change there too. So we always have that flexibility and making it work. I mean, that's what we want. So, but yeah, you've been great at communicating about grants too, and that's important when you are, working on this kind of thing. Just communicate what's going on throughout the year. So, but
definitely getting started on it early is a big thing. Not waiting till the end. I had a lot of difficulty with a couple of my grants getting stuff in because all of a sudden now we have COVID and now kids aren't there anymore. And so we got partway through some of our stuff, but now part of it has to finish at the beginning of this year. And you don't want to get yourself in that position. So yeah, just go ahead, like at the very beginning of this process, like set yourself some dates when you're going to get stuff accomplished by and stick to those. Like get an action plan with some dates down and stick to it.
Have you gotten a grant from PMC? Because they do them every year, and I actually did just put it out yesterday. So
yes, I have gotten a grant there. The first year I had a science club, I got a grant through them, and so that's really got what got me kicked off with this whole science club thing. And so so I went back to the same source, thinking I could just get a grant again, and then all of a sudden the next year it didn't work out, and all of a sudden I realized that like that's not a permanent funding sourse. Like I said.
It's so year. Yeah, but you got to keep trying. And are you going to apply with them this year too?
I don't know. Right now I haven't sat down too much and thought through everything. And I know this year is going to look so different.
I know.
And so the things that I would like to do with my classes and with my science club, they don't work when we aren't in person, or like when we can't have big neighborhood events to work on a public awareness campaign. So I really have to sit down and do some rethinking for everything and get some smart brains in the room with me where they can help me come up with some stuff.
Yeah, and so this year, as you know, last year we had 4 different offerings, and we really just this year we'll be offering 2. One will be our traditional classroom grants up to $1,000, and we do that in collaboration with the Community Foundation, Central Illinois. And then through them as well, we will be doing the STEM grant too. We'll be basically giving out 3 of those for up to $1,500. So, but it's more just like a pause this year because things are so different.
Yeah, and we'll be back to normal eventually, but right now it also means though we're going to think about teaching differently, and maybe some new ideas will come up. I do think there is a big benefit now. Like for me, I will be building up my online resources and my online teaching. And I know some of that stuff that we're learning now that we're using through Teams and everything else, I'll use in future years too. So to some certain extent, there is a benefit in forcing people to change. So stress can bring some new ideas.
So for yourself this summer, so for time for yourself, is there anything that you are watching on TV, like television shows, movies, any reading you're doing, like for your own stimulus?
Let's see. I've gotten through a book and a half, but I have lots of kids here, and so we play lots of board games.
At the end of the day, right?
Yes, I am. And so trying to get up in the morning, seeing if I can run to kind of stay in shape. We play a lot of a card game right now called Monopoly Deal, if you know what that is, or Exploding Kittens. Okay. There's a lot of card games going on here. So
you're a runner, so that you're doing some running to keep in shape and
trying.
Are you doing any cooking, or do you do the cooking, or you share that?
I do the cooking. That is another nice thing about being a teacher is that our days usually end a little bit earlier than other people's days. And so, yeah, everything doesn't have to be in a crock pot now. If I'm home during the summer, I can make something. So, yeah, cooking's fun. Just trying to keep my brain engaged and coming up with some new recipes. Just I might as well use this time to do something new. And
Right.
that's one of them.
Do you bake? Because I mean, that's the chemistry, right? Baking.
Oh, I do it all. Yeah, or at least I try.
Yeah.
I think blueberry pie. I think that's tomorrow's
Ooh.
attempt. So we'll see how it goes.
Ooh, do you make a homemade crust?
Yeah, well, I make my mom's homemade crust, so like I steal
Whoa.
recipes too, because
Is it,
just like I steal ideas, steal recipes.
yeah. Is okay. So I'm a huge baker. Is it a lard crust, a butter crust? What kind of crust are we talking here?
I mean, it's Crisco based. It's Crisco flour, salt, and what little milk to make it all stick together.
That's basically lard, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
oh, so good. Yep.
yeah.
Very good. So, um, and how long have you been teaching in Peoria Public Schools, you said?
I think this is year 12 or 13. I spent 2.5 after I got out of Bradley over at Central, and then I spent 2 years at Manual, and I think this is my 8th year here. So yeah,
Oh,
12,
wow.
13.
Yeah.
It's gone quick, but I think back to, yeah, I don't see too many students from back when I started teaching, but I definitely have to apologize to them. I'm like, I'm better now, guys. I was young.
Well, I appreciate you joining us tonight. You did a great job and a very, interesting conversation. And thank you for kind of talking about grants. And as I said when we started, our grants will be put out to the teachers in the school district on August 1. We do a newsletter that has the link and application attached. And I think you said you actually looked through that. And that is important for teachers. You can see, we'll highlight your grants, but we talk about some of the grants that were written. And, I encourage our teachers and staff to look at that and get ideas and just really get out there and look for something innovative and different. And I think it will have a pivot of this, maybe more, resources for, at-home learning too. So, but thank you so much for your time tonight. And you're getting closer and closer. What, the first day of school is the 19th, is that correct?
It's something like that. It's yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's coming up soon. So, and I do want to thank you guys. The Pure Public Schools Foundation has allowed me to do a lot with my students, build a really good science club, and hopefully do a lot more in the future. So thank you guys very much. You do a lot for our students.
Well, thank you. And we look forward to having another buzz chat. We're line up some speakers, so we'll keep you posted there. But Mr. Baumgardner, it was a true pleasure to talk, and enjoy the rest of your summer. Maybe I'll see you out on the trail, and hope your blueberry pie turns out great tomorrow. Wonderful. Hi, let's see, Diana, Connor, Thurkildson, Grace. Hello, Mr. B.
Hi, Grace.
You got some followers tonight. So we will post this on our Facebook page so you can share and people can watch it that maybe couldn't tune in tonight. But everyone have a good evening and a good weekend. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.